We've now seen an example of creating or modifying data and fetching data. So now we're going to implement the ability to view a snippet, to delete one, and edit one. And to be honest with you, all these other pages, or really these other two pages we have to work on, are going to be very similar in nature to the two we just put together. We are also going to go back eventually and add in a little bit better styling and whatnot. But for right now, let's just worry about showing a snippet to a user. Okay, so to get started, first we need to create a new page that a user can navigate to. Whenever a user navigates to this page, we're going to make sure that the path that they navigate to has the ID of the snippet in the URL that they want to see. So in this case, if a user goes to /snippets/1, that means we need to fetch the snippet with an ID of 1 out of our database and show details about it on the screen. So we're going to break this down into two separate steps. First, we need to make sure that we can show a page like this whenever a user goes to a path like that. And then secondly, we're going to implement same kind of data fetching stuff that we did just a moment ago. Okay, so let's get to it. First thing, back inside of our editor, I'm going to create that new page file. So inside of my src app snippets directory, we could create this new file by putting in a new folder of 1, and then put a page.tsx file inside there. And then whenever a user goes to snippet/1, we would show that page. But obviously, creating a separate folder for every snippet that might ever be created inside of our application, probably not a good idea. So instead, we're going to use what's referred to as a dynamic path. It's essentially a little wildcard. So inside the snippets directory, I'm going to rename this folder. I'm going to change it to square brackets ID, like so. And then inside of that, I'll make a new file called page.tsx. These square brackets are kind of like a wildcard. They will match anything after the word snippets in the path. So in this case, we've got square brackets ID. So next is going to capture that number right here in the path whenever a user navigates this page. And then next is going to take that value right there and pass it to our component as a prop. Let's just take a look at an example of how this works really quick. Okay, so back over here, inside this new page.tsx file, I will export default a new component, and we'll call this snippet show page. For right now, I'm just going to return a div that says show a snippet, and I'm going to receive some props. I'm going to annotate its type as any for just a moment. And at the top, we'll do a console log of props. I'm going to open up my terminal, then go over to my browser. I'm going to manually navigate to snippets/1. And when I go there, I will see, of course, show a snippet. So that means that we are definitely correctly showing the right page. But I also want to see that console log back in my terminal. So back inside my terminal, notice how our props object that is passed automatically into our page component has a params property. That is set to an object that has an ID property, and assigned to that is a string of 1. Now, two things I want to mention here. First, whenever Next captures a part of the URL, in this case, the 1 right there, even though it appears to you and I that this is a number, Next always treats it as a string. So you'll notice that we get a string of 1 right here. That means we might eventually need to turn this value into a number. Secondly, you'll notice that this thing shows up with a property name of ID. The reason it is specifically ID is it's taking whatever word we put in between those square brackets. So if I were to rename this folder to something like, say, snippet ID, and then go and refresh the page over here, and then take a look at the console log, now we'll see that the ID property has changed to snippet ID. I'm going to change it back to ID just because that's what I had before. And if you haven't changed it already, I don't want you to have to change it unless you did change it, in which case me changing it is terrible. I'm just kidding. Okay. So now that we've got that ID inside of our component, now we can focus on just doing some plain data fetching. We can attempt to reach into our database and find a snippet with an ID of whatever that prop is. So let's take care of some data fetching inside of our new page component in just a moment.